Thank you for joining us today on our episode for Commander's Hub. With us today, we have designer Keenser. Everyone knows designer Keenser. He's been with us on many podcasts before, and today we'll be talking about a few questions that we asked you to send us in about a couple of weeks ago. Designer Keenser, thank you so much for joining us today, and how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks very much for asking. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a little while. Um, yeah, I'm doing well enough. My family's doing well enough, and the team is getting through COVID and this time of quarantine and trouble. We hope we see some light at the end of the tunnel to get back to work. And I think the team misses each other a bit. Look forward to spending more time with them and getting back to work at on Star Trek, not just at our homes, but in our offices and together when we can.
Yeah, sounds good. It's a very unprecedented time for everyone. And actually, it's one of the questions that the players were asking. And it's how is obviously with the current situation, it has impacted a lot of how we work. But has it impacted at all on the actual development work or the work itself within the team?
It certainly affected the team, right? Everyone is working from home. All of our offices are quite closed, wherever they are in the world. And yeah, so it's affected the team and it affects us in different ways. People sometimes have to work different schedules. Some people have children at home and their schools aren't open. So they find themselves working more in the evenings or trying to find time earlier in the morning before the kids aren't up. Um, Broadly speaking, development speed hasn't been affected, right? So we're still working on a number of initiatives, both short term and long term. Everything from bug fixing small bugs, more difficult, challenging bugs, and then the content you've been seeing for Borg. The last parts of that were developed at the start of the beginning of quarantine, so you could see that, and the content that is nearly ready that all of our players will be seeing in the coming months. Obviously, all of that has been developed during quarantine, and we're pretty excited about it. Obviously, we're having lots of the Zoom chats like everyone else. The team gets by with Zoom chats and phone calls. A lot of meetings. If you're used to office culture, we do have a lot of meetings, and we still have a lot of meetings with each other. They're not in the same room anymore. They are over Zoom, but it's nice to be able to still see all of the team's faces and talk that way. So I'm glad that technology has caught up to remote working not being so impossible or still feeling pretty social. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like also on our side, the social aspect is, I think, the one that's missing the most, and trying to find ways to kind of cultivate that even through Zoom. Even though the Zoom fatigue meme is
Yeah.
real, and a lot of people do feel it.
Yeah, we try it, and there are certainly times when someone's got a child on their lap, or they just got out of a shower, and they don't turn on their camera, and that's pretty understandable. Thank you very much. Um, and yeah, but it's a mix, right? I mean, everyone's doing their best, and we tried out often. We've even done a little bit of social stuff. So, like I think last month was the team had a team dinner over Zoom. We all got food delivered and had a short little kind of social moment to try to rally and cheer each other up in the midst of these times that we're in.
Yeah, and it's also I had also an interesting talk with one of the HR. It's very interesting for them to see, especially in unprecedented ways like these, how to kind of keep the motivation going and these kind of social interactions. And it's very nice to see throughout the whole company with all the teams kind of doing similar initiatives. And it's nice to see that it's still keeping the social and humanistic part of it, right? We're not becoming robotic and just doing our work and having it done with. So one of the next questions is again kind of residing with what you were talking about, but more on a high level of players are wondering the decision making on which bugs or issues to be fixed first. How is this made?
We have a backlog, so that we have a list of the most significant and least significant bugs that are handled in various databases that we use as a team. And we have a QA team that goes through and identifies those bugs. Similarly, some of those bugs come in from the community team and your CS and from the team like you, Philip. And then, basically that the QA team prioritizes the bugs, right? The shortest version of that is they prioritize the bugs that have the biggest impact on players or perceived impact on players. That doesn't mean those are sometimes the first we can solve. Sometimes, like a bug that has a little less impact but is an easy fix, something where it's just text or changing a number here and there, that's pretty easy for the data team and the design teams to do. Some of the more complicated bugs on like syncing or notifications that have plagued us for a while are the ones that we, believe it or not, spent a huge amount of investment time in trying to fix or investigating the fix of and trying to find out what kind of refactor of code would be required to accomplish it. None of these bugs are something that we've just written off and written the proverbial engineering speak of won't fix, but some of them are longstanding issues that we are having tech investigation for, right? And then ultimately, though, those decisions float up to the leadership of the team, and they have meetings, part of daily and weekly syncs where they talk about where for the next sprint of time, the team uses kind of agile development and sprints, where those resources will be allocated to which bugs that we think we can accomplish, and then of course some of them, a bug or a given issue that we want to fix or an improvement we want to make, those can fall over multiple sprints. But it really is just a team-wide decision based on the negative effects that it's causing. And then that's somewhat balanced by the ease of fixing it or the difficulty of fixing it, in terms of how soon we can make that happen.
Yeah, understandable. And it's, of course, as you said, it's the depending on the feasibility and, of course, the impact that it has on the players. And where kind of like on that question itself, uh, obviously, when new bugs come in, unfortunate bugs during some updates, unforeseen ones, I assume that there is some sort of reprioritization of what bug to fix next.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Sometimes, a bug, nobody likes to release any kind of bug software. Um, but when we have, unfortunately, the magnitude of the bug, it kind of drives that question, right? So sometimes we release something to live and we've discovered it, and then often it's a data change, and we will push out that data change as fast as we can. Sometimes that day, within a few hours, the next day. Things that are more log standing, or those tend to fall as they get reprioritized. Like I said, we're meeting about these issues daily and weekly as part of our kind of stand-ups that the teams have for the different pods that work together. And there is the notion there is that we have to take those new bugs that we've made, unfortunately, into account and get them fixed as well.
Yeah. And yeah, one of the things that we've prepared with the moderators as well is the change log, because there's still this perception within the community that every release that we have there is the new bugs list. But I think the what's happening is that there's a lot of things that have kind of stayed there because they're just much harder to fix, and you have to reiterate the whole game. Like for example, the some bugs with the officers that are still kind of staying in the mist.
Yeah, I mean, we are working on it, some pretty big things to fix those, but that's
Hmm.
taken time, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, obviously that we know about some of those long-standing issues and we are working on fixing them. Um, Part of that will be a part of a more major code refactor that's underway, that will be more comprehensive to be able to both fix the current issues that we're experiencing, and then unlock at the same time the ability to do new and more interesting officers, at the same time. And if you can, I don't know if you're listening now, but like if you're on that code side, we're kind of really having to dig into the integral guts of the low level systems to really improve and fix the buff system, make it more clear and make it more versatile and make it more stable.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really great, and the potential as well, even greater. Thanks for that. Another question that I think it's we asked this a while back in one of our Q&As, but players are still wondering, is concerning the market or black market type of mechanic within the game. Are we ever going to see something like this?
Yeah, it's definitely something the design team has wanted for a while. We were excited by the concept. I mean, you see sort of sometimes touches of it, like with an event store, can accomplish some of that notion. But yeah, the design team and one of the other designers has been, this has been his pet baby for quite some time, and we've been nursing on the ideas for it to get that across. We want to find the right time, the right content to make that happen. And because we think it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot more stuff we still very much want to add to the game. Here we are, a year and a half ish, post release, and we're really happy that fans are still playing it and still enjoying the game, because we have so much more we want to do and so much more we want to add, and we're very excited about the stuff we have coming out planned for the rest of the year. That most of all of that's in development. The content that we want to make and beyond. Right, we had a meeting just last week. Kind of a creative summit. Normally we get together in real space every couple months or every few months to discuss the kind of future roadmap of all the stuff we want to add to Star Trek. And this one was, of course, over Zoom, so it wasn't quite as fun. But we were still really passionate, and the team was really excited about all these different ideas. And as you can expect, it's a team of pretty creative people, and we have more ideas than we can accomplish in the short term. But we are really excited about the short term and the long term of stuff that players will be able to experience.
Yeah, I remember joining one of the creative summits when I was in last year when I came to Ireland. It was the amount of stuff that can happen and the amount of ideas out there are just incredible. And it's kind of one thing I want to players to understand is that we do take your feedback all the time, but essentially it's that we have so much going on in the background where we kind of prioritize that based on a lot of stuff that's coming out. Um, I wanted to then now talk about just shift gears a bit and talk about a perception that a lot of players have. In my opinion, this was definitely not the case for the Borg, but there is this perception within players that a lot of the content that we bring out is geared towards higher level players. Now, obviously, we know that once G4 came out, this was the effect because the game was just expanding, and that's what an expansion is. But why would you think players would have this kind of perception?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, right? The games expand, this is part of the game's DNA is in strategy and in MMOs, and it's pretty natural that over time, levels, cap increases and more content comes into the game. I think that's a natural part of the growth and evolution of the game. Uh, we try to look at when's the right time for that and when we would experience that again, or when we were doing it before, trying to look at how many players have reached cap, and then a lot of those players were like, I want more, right? I want to be able to progress and keep going and get my next new ship. I don't think we have anything like that planned anytime soon, just for the record. But it's a part of the evolution of the game, for MMOs to make additional content. But at all groups and all kind of levels of players, right? For players that are feeling that, here I am stuck at level 39 and I want to be able to keep progressing. And then a lot of the content, whether that's battle passes and Borg and throughout all of those different events and content and tentpoles, we're trying to reach different levels of users, and some of the content will be aimed at a higher end user, some of it will be aimed at the lower and mid end, and that's just part of where we're trying to balance the growing audience of the game. Whereas new players come in, they've got a lot of content, but they want to feel a part of the current content and the current tentpole activity that's going on. But then we got players who've been playing this since the game's release, and some of them even in a soft launch before that, and they're excited by the new stuff, and they tend to be more high level, right? Both audiences enjoy new experiences and enjoy MMO style gameplay.
Thank you for that, for your answer. I want to go to another question. This is a question that I really have a lot of passion for, being also a previous Eve player myself. So the game is there's a lot of depth within the game, a lot of a lot of awesome mechanics, and a lot of right now gearing towards a very sandbox mode of it. And I wanted to ask, do you think there's ever a time in the future where we'd see a PC version of Star Trek Command?
Possible. I mean, I know that some people play on other kind of third-party platforms and Android emulators, that emulate a tablet on their PC. People, happily play Star Trek for many hours, and obviously for some of them, that's a lot easier to do on a PC device than it is, on the phone for that, length of time. Um, we are investigating the possibility, right? It is a lot of technical work because a lot of the work that we do with Google and Apple is a partnership, and we use their technology, and they're a big part of it. We would have to stand up a pretty independent service in terms of the front end that the players would experience on a PC. Just because it's on an Android emulator on a PC doesn't mean that a PC client is easily done. And then integrating, of course, all of that cross-platform, because it would have to be, all of the tech and server and being in a cross-play like that would be a big deal. But we're investigating that on, for both low-end devices, something like a Chromebook, and higher-end, more typical PC gaming devices. So it is absolutely something we are looking into. We heard a lot of players over the last couple of months express an interest in that, so we started a team that's kind of looking into that and everything that it would take on the kind of platform and back-end and client teams to be able to support it.
So this is more like a curiosity for myself, and I assume a lot of players have this as well. But would it be difficult for a mobile games company to switch to having also a games as a service for a PC games company? Like, is there the infrastructure there available, or do massive changes need to be made?
I won't say massive changes. I mean, so long enough again in my history, I've worked on PC MMOs,
Yep.
and a lot of the same infrastructure is there. I'm not a coder, so I'm going to stop talking at some point in that kind of line of thread. But a lot of the things on the back end, a lot of the things on, the server architecture isn't that different, but it's a completely different client, right? That right now, we're using Unity and things like that, we a lot of that is well integrated and well understood by the team that has been working on mobile products for quite some time. And a lot of them, if you go back into their history there too, there's some PC or console development in their history. So it's not that that knowledge is, a foreign language, or at least not a difficult foreign language. But it would be a fair amount of change for the team to experience that, right? It would be, and we don't want, another way to look at this is, while we're very interested in expanding the reach of Star Trek and letting our current players play on PC is something that we feel is very compelling. We don't want to take away from the team that is there. A lot of our players are happy playing on their mobile devices, and we don't want to take away resources in a big way to make a PC game or to make a PC client for Star Trek Fleet Command, when that would make less cool stuff for them, right? All the cool features and content that we're building in the last few months, we don't want to take that away from the Star Trek Fleet Command players that exist.
Yeah, no, it's make complete sense. It was more just from a fandom point of view because it would be great just for the potential. But yeah, I completely understand. I think it's one of the reasons I would love to see Star Trek Fleet Command in a PC version is because of such the amazing community that it can build and the potentials that it can have as a game. But it's yeah, definitely a fair point. So the board came in. Everyone was super excited. I was crazy excited about it. I loved the arcs themselves. Um, so now that the Borg is nearly over, the final showdown is nearly there. We're destroying that mega cube. Do we expect to see any more such prominent IPs from the Star Trek universe, like Picard, let's say, for future content releases?
That's a great question, and I'm gonna try to give you the best answer I can. So, the tentpoles that we've done in the past have all been related to fundamentally the original Kelvin universe of films that the game started to be developed with, right? Star Trek Fleet Command started development. We've been at release for 2 years, and it was in development for 2 to 3 years, but actually about 3 years before that, right? So you can think back to when the game was starting development about 5 years ago. The original first two films, I believe, released, and Beyond had not yet been released. And we were really excited about that universe that J.J. Abrams and all of that team had created and built. It was a big renaissance for Star Trek in a big way. Now, obviously, there hasn't been a film for a while. We don't know where films will be. We reach out and we talk to CBS, the IP holder, as we say in the kind of industry. They own Star Trek, and they decide the releases both in terms of movies and television, or streaming television anyway. And we're talking with them a lot, right? So we would love to add more stuff. We've managed to sneak in the kind of Borg with the concept of course, the Borg would have been in the Kelvin universe somewhere, and that's what they were doing. We were imagining that, and they've appeared in some of the kind of Kelvin universe comics and content like that. So if you're a fan of that kind of thing, there are definitely some great comic books to read more about this kind of content. As we look forward, we're planning some cool stuff for the next month, the coming months, that will take things in a different direction. But in the long term, to answer your question, We are very interested and we're working very hard to bring more of Star Trek, more of the Star Trek that fans know and love, and that has been around for decades, into Star Trek Fleet Command. And we are really excited by the prospect.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, how personally, obviously, my favorite is the Voyager. I get a lot of scrap for that, but that's fine, and that's what I would love to see. But
Yeah, Voyager was good. I liked Janeway. I liked
yeah,
Seven of Nine and Paris and some of the guys. It was a very entertaining show. Actually got to meet the actor who played Kim one year, at a
what?
convention.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was very cool. He was a very nice guy, actually. He was very generous with his time.
That's great. I saw like I didn't see it obviously. I had nearly the chance to go to Comic Con at some point, and there were some characters from the shows, but didn't have the chance. Oh well.
Yeah, this was back at Gen Con, actually. It's
Oh.
a gaming convention that's like paper
Hmm.
and dice, Dungeons and Dragons and Magic and all that sort of thing. And yeah, he was a guest there, and I got to hang out with him for a while and help, doing guest relations and stuff. But it was
That's
fun.
that sounds cool. Yeah, hopefully once this quarantine is over and the conventions open up, maybe we can get the chance again to see our favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I want nothing more than, everyone to be healthy and safe, but
Hmm.
all of us are eager to get out of our houses more and get it back to normal.
Yeah. No, for sure. I can imagine. Here at some point they will let us out for free, but for now it's just shopping and back. Just sitting outside my house and looking at the sun.
Exactly. I mean, I have a small little backyard that I spend yeah, I've gotten to know very well. But and the rest of the time has very much been inside in the smallest room of my house, which is a tiny little cubicle of an office space that kind of carved out for this purpose. So I spend most of my day in the smallest, tiniest room of my apartment.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can imagine. I have as well. Like I walks up and down my apartment as well. Sometimes my roommate is just looking at me, going back and forth, like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I have nowhere else to go."
yeah. I think I've left house like twice in the last 6 weeks. One of them was just to get in the car and drive around in circles a little bit. I know, sorry, environmentalists. I don't do that often, but and then it was just to see something, to get out of the house and that kind of thing. Yeah,
To feel some sort of old normality or ex-normality, I guess if you want to call it. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Also, so just wanted to like, yeah, on that question, depending on Picard, why did we choose the Kelvin timeline to start off with? Was it?
It was where the new Star Trek was. I mean, in very simple terms, right? When the game started development, Picard didn't exist, Discovery didn't exist on CBS All Access. There was no currently running television show, at least that I can know or remember, and this was where the kind of center of now was, for Star Trek, and they were well received and popular and exciting, and so it felt natural that we didn't know how many films would be created. We still don't, I guess, know how many films will be created under that banner. Or, we've heard rumors about new films from people like Quentin Tarantino and stuff that sound really cool and exciting.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed, exploring that universe and the great cast and crew that has been showed off in those films. But yeah, the shortest version is that's where our Star Trek was, right? And that, where a partnership with CBS, really everybody felt, CBS felt that that's where they could expand the game, and they wanted the focus of the, not just the film universe, but the kind of focus of gaming and all cycle of play, or all cycle of what Star Trek was about those movies.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think definitely a good start, but at some point, even myself, there's nostalgia just setting in sometimes, and just like wishing maybe there's a bit of
Oh,
the old
sure.
stuff coming up. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with Next. You're a big fan of Voyager. I'm a massive fan of Next Generation,
yeah,
and I grew up with it, right? And I love nothing more than to get to work with that kind of content and get to introduce it. Similarly, like I really enjoyed watching the first season of Picard. I was amazed and surprised by the ending of season 2 of Discovery. I won't give any spoilers for any of you who haven't watched it yet, but I'm a geek, right? I love Star Trek. I grew up with it. My parents had me watching, when I was, too late at night when there wasn't Next Gen on. I'd be up late at night watching old Trek with, Shatner and all the old crew was
yeah,
on. However, sometimes a little cheesy that it came across, I still enjoyed it. And I still loved it.
yeah. No, for sure. I like the Big Bang Theory episodes where they bring him in, and they just cheese him completely in those ones.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, Wesley gets a lot of
Yeah,
grief in Next Gen, but I have an enormous respect for that actor and for the difficulty of the role that he was cast in and
Of
everything.
course.
I think Wheaton's amazing. I like watching his podcast. I
Hmm.
loved watching his like kind of teardowns of next gen episodes and talking about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I really I'm a fan. So
yeah, that's cool. That's awesome to hear. I want to like just go back a bit into the game itself. So one of the question that's been talked about for a while now, we talked about it as well in one of our previous podcasts, but it considered server merges. So
mhm.
the question is like, so are these coming anytime soon? And what does this actually mean for the game?
Sure. So I mean, fundamentally, we have been blessed by players who've really fallen in love with Star Trek Fleet Command, who are big Star Trek fans, and they stay around in the game for a very long time, right? You know, no one plays a game quite forever, but our players are really putting that question to the test, and we thank them for their patience, their fandom, their passion for the game that they're enjoying so much, right? But it is also true that not everyone stays around forever, and the audience of some of our servers has gotten low. Some of the original servers that people have been playing in for a year and a half now, there's a core of dedicated fans that are still there and playing a lot. But the number of people that they have to interact with, to play with, to form alliances with, to do armadas with, to defeat Borg with, and then to a lesser extent, some of them that they have a chance to fight and compete with, that audience number is getting pretty low. And that's really fundamentally what server merge is meant to address, right? We want to take our very low population servers and give them new life by putting them together. So we look at a variety of factors like how old the servers are and how balanced they are and how low they are in population. And that's where we're starting this question. This is pretty common to these kinds of games, both in terms of PC games and MMOs and 4X games, strategy games like ours. That over time, this is just good for the health of the game. And we are just starting some early technical testing. So it's not soon, and it's not next week, and it's not really next month that there's going to be any effect on the vast majority of any of these players. And when we do this, we're going to be going really slow, right? I know if you're on one of those servers that has a low population and you may be eager to be merged, and get some fresh blood. Um, but there's both technical testing that needs to happen, and we want to take time to observe it. So we'll pick two of the lowest population servers in the game, merge them together eventually. Again, I don't have a date for you. That's not like tomorrow or next time. But once we're ready for that, we're going to look and evaluate how those servers perform, make sure that everything technically stands up. There's no bugs that are listed or any kind of notion like that, or and then we'll look at how those players do, both talking to them anecdotally and looking at their reactions and their playtime to make sure that everyone has felt good about it. We'll look at mining rates and making sure that the players still can find mines and things like that in the game, and content like that in the game, and hostiles. And then we'll make an evaluation of like, okay, the next couple servers, this seems safe, this seems good, it seems to have helped these players are liking for it. And some of you may have seen, we've done surveys with our players. I know some of our players out there are eager to get merged and to get a population boost, and some of them are afraid of it. Some of them are like, whoa, my server's already desperately overcrowded, and the last thing I want to do is put a whole lot more people on it to be fighting over scarce resources. Yeah, that's not our intent either. We're trying to make a gameplay experience that feels good and feels, fair, and feels like people can get to resources and get to content at the same time that it's, we don't want to create a lonely experience. This is, an online shared experience.
Uh, awesome. That actually answered a lot of the next follow-up questions which players actually had, which were some stuff like what will happen to mines if we're overpopulating a server, or what will happen to my base, or what will happen to my resources, stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah, of course, all of your content will be preserved, right? You'll keep all of your resources, everything like that. It's not any kind of start over or anything like that. About the only thing that could happen to your base is that, in theory, two star bases could be occupying the same space on or occupying the exact same star base spot on a planet, um, across two servers, and there we'll have to figure out one of them might get to keep and the other one gets moved, right? And then even then, of course, they would get a relocation token or something like that to be able to do that.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I guess kind of hit it the nail on the head by saying that there will be a lot of monitoring in the beginning anyway, so it's not like we're just gonna merge them and then So be it, right?
Oh, not at all. I mean, we want to, again, these are our players, and we want the best for them. And really, this started, if you remember, a podcast we did last year. There were a number of players really going, hey, my server's gotten a little unpopulated after a year and a half. Um, can we get merged, right? And that's a lot of this was brought up from all of you out there.
Yep, that's really cool to hear. I just want to go a little question about the Borg. So obviously there's a lot of content that came over the past 4 months, and one of the questions the player was asking was, now that the Borg is going to be over, will players still be able to obtain all the Borg content vis-a-vis the Borg, the officers, the Borg armadas will stay, maybe some of the missions that they missed, stuff like that.
Some of it yes, and some of it no. I mean, like some of this stuff is an event that this is a time when it's possible to complete, and uh, that's what it's for. That it's an event, and not all of it is a permanent addition. Of course, the officers and everything that you've been earned stays. That's not what I'm trying to say. But not all of the opportunities and events that are running, not all the kinds of content that is out there, will be around forever. And but that doesn't mean it will be gone forever either, right? So we look for, we've got events that have been running in the game where we go back to uh, previous content and previous events where we go back and we deal with the augment space or stuff like that. And I think that's the kind of roadmap or the kind of what you can imagine, that the Borg are going to fade from the prominence of Star Trek Fleet Command as we introduce something new, but that doesn't mean they're gone forever.
Yep, and yeah, of course, a good example is the Swarm and the Ferengi. They're still in the game. There's still weekly events for them. So obviously, the team will always find a way to incorporate some of that Borg action into
Yeah,
our
and
weeklies, or yeah,
exactly, and new players are coming into the game every day, right? We continue to be really happy about the number of new players entering, Fleet Command, and enjoying their experience, and we'll want to provide them. There's going to be someone who hasn't even started the game yet, or is starting the game, at Christmas this year, all of the time, really, and we do want all of this wonderful content that our current players have been able to enjoy. We want them to have a chance at eventually as well.
that's good to hear, and it makes sense. It also comes close to what we've been doing till now, anyway. So a lot of you players know that if you listen to previous podcasts, I've had extensive arguments with you on Discord. You know that my favorite thing to do in the game is PvP and alliance versus alliance wars. But for you, Keen sir, what is your most memorable experience from the game itself?
Um, I mean, a lot of it is just alliance chat. I mean, like the friends that I've made in the game and chatting and getting to know them better. Um, a lot of my memories now are about the people I've got to meet, right? That I've spent time with in the game and on Discord, and yeah, I mean that's been what I'll take away most, from what I remember most on a daily basis is friends telling me how they're doing now, or both in the game and in real life, or stuff they want to do. I can, the first introduction day of Armadas was a big day where my alliance really got and had a lot of fun,
Yep.
and um, that still really sticks out. So Armada day one was really exciting, and I think it's probably the best memory. The funniest memory, I guess, is one time I was playing the game and I didn't notice that my shield went down, um, and just timed out. And it's right there on the HUD, but I still didn't notice it. And so a very large group of enemy combatants formed outside my base, like a couple hours later. And I didn't notice them at first, and thankfully one of my alliance members did. But then I got to have a little fun with it, right? So I didn't launch any of my ships for a while. And it was just sitting there, and I had some resources exposed, and so they obviously wanted to attack me, and I got to have fun with them a little bit, and kind of trap them a bit, because I let them attack me for a little bit and let them blow up almost all my ships, and then I repaired one, and they were confused. They didn't notice at first, so then they kept attacking, and it was like counterproductive. They were hitting my base over and over again and not getting any resources, and I was just slowly repairing one or two ships, and they eventually figured it out. and my alliance was watching the whole time. And some of them were like trying to defend me, but they were like, he's not here. They were trying to pretend that I wasn't actually online. Like, stop hitting him. He's gonna come back and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of social play, a little bit of fun. But it was fun to lay a trap for the great evil alliance on my server. So
Uh, there you go, guys. Kinsu here showing us new mind games to play with in the game with our enemies out there. So I think I might use that as well myself.
yeah, you have to be careful, right? Don't let your shields down unless you're actually online and intending to be clever, or at least make sure your alliance mates will give you a heads up. So
Yeah, one of my alliance mates actually has my Facebook, and once my shields actually went down, I thought I put like an 8 hour, but instead of put like I think I put like a 4 hour instead. I fat fingered
yep.
it, and then he just started spamming me on Facebook, dude, get online now. And I think I was having a shower
I
at
had
that
that
point.
happen a few weeks ago. Someone was spamming me on Discord of like, you're getting attacked, and I was like, frankly asleep. But the Discord pings, woke me, and yeah, saved my base in time before my ships were blown up.
Yeah,
So
it's good guy alliance members. That's great to hear.
yep.
Well, thank you so much, Kinzer, for being with us today. I know it's thank you. I know it's very early for you there, but thank you so much for getting to answer our questions and a lot of the players' questions that they had for us. Some really cool, really interesting conversations that we had today. So, and any final words you'd like to say before we?
No, I mean, I thank you again for setting this up. I really look forward to these chats. We should do it more often. And, the players that we have, I am so thankful for. I'm just a small part of a team that has been really, this is our lives, and I know for a lot of our players, it's a large part of their lives, or some of them a small part of their lives. But either way, this is, been my life for the last several years, and I am so grateful that all of our players are enjoying the game and are passionate about the game and have good constructive criticism about the game. It's really appreciated, especially now when we're all again locked in our houses. That feeling the connection with other humans in Star Trek has, been one of the things that's keeping me going. So thank you all for that and sharing this experience with us.
That's really cool to hear because we have on the blog right now player stories or stories of the galaxies where players have sent us our stories, and I think a lot of them really resonate with what you're talking about with the social
Yeah, that
aspect that's
story
kept in.
was like that story. One of those stories nearly had me in tears. But yeah, absolutely, it's been nice to see.
Yeah. So, commanders, again, thank you for joining us today. Any questions that you have, please leave them down in the comments, or of course, come to Discord and just bother myself, moderators, or whoever you find there, and we'll try and answer your questions, or just have a chat, conversation, argument, whatever you want. Thanks again for joining us, guys, and please stay safe, stay at home, and hopefully we'll get out of this mess soon enough.